I'm gonna start talking. And so the idea is try to make this as, of course, as interactive and friendly as we can, and so feel free to interrupt me at any moment. Right, today is going to be mostly a presentation just because it's the first meeting and we have to provide some content. Hopefully in other meetings we can do different things, and but that's where we are. So welcome everyone. You are, even if you don't know it, you are making history today, right? So you're going to be part of the first meeting in history for OpenFGA, and when we kind of get to the size of Kubernetes, something like that, we'll always remember that you were part of the beginning. So thank you very much. Today we're gonna just, first introduce ourselves and talk a little about our V1 launch. We are gonna be next week in Europe. I'm gonna mention what we're gonna do there in case some of you plan to attend. I don't know if anyone's from Europe here, but it would be awesome to see you there. And then things we've been working on, we just shipped, and what we're planning to do in the near future, and then have an open conversation about whatever topic you might want. So this is us, and most of the people in this slide are here, but Maria, she's a little early for her, and so maybe everyone can introduce themselves. So I'm Andres, I'm the one in the bottom right. I'm based in Uruguay. Everyone could put whatever flags they want to be besides their image, so that's how they feel represented. So Matthew, you can start if you want from.
Awesome. My name is Matthew Pereira. I'm a product designer at Okta from Halifax, Canada. I've been with the project since it was first sort of incubated in a Auth0 Labs project in 2021. I'll pass along to Raged next.
Hey folks, some of you know me. I'm one of the engineers on the team. Also joined roughly at the same time as Matthew and Adrian, like at the start, and of course Jamian. Based on Toronto, though I don't have Canada flag, but yeah.
Hey, Carlos.
Who's next? Adrian, maybe?
Yeah, Jacob. I don't know. No, sorry. I'm following the slide order.
Okay, predetermined order. Hi, my name is Jacob Herdig. I'm the engineering manager for the FGA team. I'm based out of Toronto. I've been with the team since last January, so a little bit over a year. I guess Jonathan's up next.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Jonathan Whitaker. On the engineering side of things, you'll probably see me engaging a lot on PR activity and nitpicks and things like that, but looking forward to collaborating with everyone from the community. Yeah, just have a little bit of background in Zanzibar before joining this team, and I've been with this team a little over a year and just love the work we're working on. So nice to have you all here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adrian Tam, and I'm based in Toronto, Canada, and been here since early in the incubation period from the Auth0 Labs, similar to Matthew and Rag. So you see me from doing docs, like some of the SDK generator, the backend, whatever that's needed. I think Yamil is next.
Hi, I'm Yamil. I wrote a lot of the ugly code that the guys are refactoring these days. So any old regressions, you can blame them on me. I kind of worked on the very, very early project, but thankfully it's on better hands now.
Awesome. And Maria is not here. She's based on Vancouver, Canada, and she's originally from Argentina. So she might join us during the meeting. All right, so now it's up to you. If you want to introduce yourselves with whatever level of detail, that would be awesome. And if you can share why you're interested in the project and where you are in the adoption journey, that also will be awesome for everyone to kind of understand where everyone is. I don't have your images here, so you need to pick the order in whatever alphabetical order or whatever order you decide to.
Sure, I'll start. Yeah, I'm Jacob. I'm based out of Napa, California, and I'm an engineer on the identity platform at GoDaddy. So yeah, we're interested in OpenFGA because we're kind of revamping how we think about authorization of the company, and this kind of relationship-based model is very appealing to us. And where are we in the journey? We're kind of in the running it ourselves, kind of in all of our environments, but still very early on, like actually having real production traffic. We don't have any of that yet. So working on internal integrators right now.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jacob.
Hi. Hi, so I'm Carlos Perez. I'm in Coral Springs, Florida. I work for New Relic on the IAM team. I'm focused around OpenFGA as a extension or new version of our authorization system because we have a very coarse grain system at the moment, and we're looking to introduce more fidelity into our authorization decisions. But as far as the actual adoption goes, it's primarily at this point strictly research and prototyping without any backlog for real work.
Thank you, Carlos.
I'm Brett Hubbard with Pluralsight. I'm out of Orlando, and glad to see, Carlos, you're not drowning in Fort Lauderdale. We have been really interested in Zanzibar from before Auth0FGA and OpenFGA were a thing, and we were investigating products and started looking into this as soon as it was launched, and we're really excited about that. We are currently trying to transition all of our authorization calls to OpenFGA to get parity with our current authorization system and then expand further.
Awesome. Thanks, Brett. Anyone else wants to introduce themselves?
I can go. I'm Rudy. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. I'm the founder of a company called Papertree. Interested in OpenFGA. I think I was like looking into different kinds of ways of modeling permissions for Papertree, and trying to find like alternative, like non-traditional, non-hierarchical ways of modeling permissions, as just kind of like experimenting with that. Have experience working with like blockchain and hacking on like stuff around that. And for Papertree, was particularly interested in trying to replicate some of the ways like a Gnosis safe works, but trying to build that into any application, and also trying to find like other ways to create non-hierarchical permissions in apps. So very early on, just trying to get familiar with the tool, running different prototypes, and folks have been super helpful in the Discord already and like pointing me in different directions. And also trying to now look into Open Policy Agent and see if there's ways that those two things can work together. But yeah, just exploring right now.
I'll introduce myself.
Awesome.
Can you guys hear me?
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
All right, cool. My name is Paul Figura. I'm an identity architect from UKG, and actually we have been through the journey in the past to try and define our own, let's say, authorization language. That currently is not going forward for the moment, and we were looking at OPA as a potential solution, but right now, hey Carlos, right now we are still evaluating different solutions, and in fact, it was Jacob that pulled me into this so that I can have a better visibility on OpenFGA and what's going on. So thank you, Jacob.
Awesome, thank you, Paul. I don't know if anyone else wants to introduce themselves.
Hey all, I'm John from Athens, Greece. I'm currently driving, so yeah, I'm working in Orpheum as a staff engineer, and for the past few months, we've been receiving some crazy scenarios on authorization for the products we're building, and I've been, I want to have my eyes in this project because I'm pretty sure it's so exciting. So yeah, and I've been experimenting with Thought Zero FGA lately. So it's research also for us for the moment. Nice meeting you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? I think most of the people, Thomas, I think you just joined. I know you from Twitter, so thanks for joining. And I don't know if you want to introduce yourself. Yes.
Yeah, hey, hi, I'm Thomas from Germany. I work for Codecentric. I'm currently watching my 10-month-old toddler, so I can't stay on all the time. But yeah, I'm deeply interested in all things of modern authorization, and OpenFGA is one of the cool tools on the blog. And yeah, I've experimented recently with integrating it with Open Policy Agent because I think both have value and both can be used in combination with certain use cases. And that's what I'm currently exploring at the moment. So thanks for that.
Awesome. Yeah. So Thomas wrote and contributed an integration between OPA and Open Policy Agent and OpenFGA. You can find that in our community page with a link to it if you're interested in exploring both products together. Okay, I think, so Augustine, you don't want to introduce yourself? You're the last one, I think, in the list. I also recognize your name from other places.
Hi, I'm actually out and there's a lot of construction going on, so I decided to just keep my message move. So yeah, I'm also just interested in OpenFGA. We're planning to use that in our next kind of POC. So looking to see if we get more details about how to get the go about things for you. Okay? Cool.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. That was very kind from you. So let's go to the next thing. Yeah, so we are going to announce and launch OpenFGA V1. That's going to happen between today and on Monday, right? So like that basically implies repackaging our last release with a V1 tag. So it's not that we are shipping new features. In every open source project, it's not that like you can hide a lot of features and then ship it all together. Right? You're kind of continuously building, and at some moment you call it a major version. The main reasons we decided to do this is kind of course, if you want to ship something with a V1, you want to make sure that the product can be used in production. And in the last few weeks, we've been having conversations. I've been reaching out to a lot of the people that I've seen interacting with the product. Some of you having part of those conversations and trying to find how they are using it, right? To get certain confidence of, can this be used in production, and can we trust it as a production product? And we are pretty confident that that's the case. We have been using the product for our hosted version for more than a year, but the Postgres part is something that we don't have experience running it in production. So we wanted to check that with the rest of the community. So what we did is we did that. We also kept running more tests and trying to do more performance and stress testing on the Postgres version. The bad thing is that we spend a lot of time on that, and the bad thing, so that's the bad thing. The good thing is that we couldn't find anything, right? So from a product perspective, was I don't know if a good usage of our time, but from being confident that the product is in good shape, it was great, right? So our things we did, you might have seen that we improved a lot the way we handle telemetry and metrics and traces and logs. We shipped a Helm chart that helps you deploy to Kubernetes much more easily. And so this is why we made the decision, and you are gonna see the announcements pretty soon. Any questions or comments about this? Awesome. So we're also going to be next week in Europe, as I mentioned. So we're going to be in a kiosk there. We have a meeting with the community on Tuesday, and then we'll be part of a cloud native authorization versus a federal on Friday. I don't know. I think the only person here in Europe is Thomas. Probably someone from Codecentric is going to attend. I don't know if it's Thomas will be the person, but it will be awesome to meet people there. Okay, from Swag, so we have Swag for different levels of commitment with the project, right? So you can get a t-shirt like this one, which is pretty nice, but you don't need to wear it actually. You'll get it and you can do whatever you want. You can get a sticker that if you put it in your laptop, it's kind of a commitment for the project. So we love that. And if you're really committed, you can have a tattoo like anywhere you want, right? And that is kind of the if I see someone with an OpenFGA tattoo in KubeCon, I will hire him, right? I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's going to be fun. Anyway, so that's next week. And so I'm going to be there with Jonathan and with someone else from our team in Belgium. So things with a shift, I just mentioned a few of these things. I'm going to click on some of these links so you can see what it is. But this is our OpenFGA Helm chart. You can now easily run and install OpenFGA in a Kubernetes environment with something that's very simple to do. So this is mostly done by Jonathan. Thank you very much. We improved a lot of the way we handle telemetry. So right now we kind of collect Prometheus. Metrics are collected with Prometheus data formats, Prometheus. We have tracing that can be collected in OLTP data format, and we have logging that we generate to standard out, and we can be configured to redirect to other places. So that's it's pretty cool today. If you launch OpenFGA with Docker, you can immediately see with Docker Compose, you will get Grafana and Jagger integrated there and can see the metrics and the traces pretty easily. So snap. Other features we're building is we are simplifying the way you can call a check in batch. So if you want to make multiple calls to check a lot of things at the same time, you can do that easily today. In the past, you could do it by writing code yourself and make a lot of checks in parallel. We're adding support for that in SDKs. So, and we also adding support for, we did that in Node and .NET, and we are going to ship it for the rest of the SDKs pretty soon. And also we added a feature, an endpoint in the SDK that is called list relations that uses the batch check in the SDKs to basically see if a specific user has specific relationships with specific object, right? So that's also a quick way to check all of that and makes the developer experience simpler. Some of the things like batch check and list relations right now are on the client side, so we end up making multiple checks. It might happen that we move some of those to the server at some moment, right? And if to reduce round trips, but right now they are on the client. For batch check, it might make sense. List relations, it's just a few checks calls, right? It might not make sense to do it in the server, but that's something we are thinking of too. And then yesterday we added support or to kind of sign our releases, and so that if you care about having the software bill of materials or check if the releases were not tampered, and that you can do that with the way we are signing the product. That helped us get to, so there's something called CLO monitor that kind of tracks the health of the project. And if you click here, you see that and from all CNCF and Linux Foundation projects, kind of there are only a few projects that are in 100. And we are there, right? So like 6 projects that are in 100 and while we are in the list. So that was good to see. And this is something that we were shipping in the last couple of 3 or 4 weeks, okay? And then we've been mostly working in Q1 in this kind of work. Right now we are wrapping up a few other things that is part of the scope of this Q1 work. We are adding more batch checks and these relations to other SDKs. We are simplifying how you can do performance testing. right now, if you go to our Helm charts, let me see if I can see a Helm chart. You can, we have one, I think it's not here, but we have one that lets you trigger a performance test, okay, on your Postgres database, and we are using that to run it in every environment. So we run this in Amazon, in Azure, in Google, and different databases, and see how that operates. This was part of this performance testing effort. We want to make it very easy for us and for everyone. They want to check performance to do it that way. And so next thing that will be in the next few weeks, we're going to start working in a CLI. There's a couple of CLIs already there, and but that implies that there's a need to have one. And so we want to have one that is official. In the community today, I think we have a couple. Anyway, so you can trust me. And we're going to build a better one, right? That has more features, and the community can contribute and improve over time. And so that's one. We have today, we implemented a feature called list objects. List objects is working great. If you are not using and or but not in a relationship definition, okay? So if you are using and or but not, then when you're asked list objects that have this relationship with specific user, that's going to take a lot of time. And so we're going to work on fixing that. Okay? So that is not, it's a significant amount of work, right? But we're going to tackle it in the next few weeks because it's important. And we're also going to build a Java SDK that is also long due, and we have a few customers asking for that, and it will simplify usage for those. So this is kind of next few weeks. We have a roadmap in GitHub that is pretty up to date now. I've been doing some work to keep it in better shape. That kind of reflects that this work we are discussing, and we are going to keep it up to date when whatever is happening with the project. And so the most interesting things are, okay, what are we thinking for later? And later here is pretty ambiguous on purpose, right? So we don't know when we're going to do this. It's going to be like in the following quarter or later this year or next year. We still figuring it out. It will depend on a lot of things, right? And so one is additional OpenFGA API authorization options. Today, when you use OpenFGA, you need to call it with a client with a shared secret, or you can also use a client ID and client secret that you can provision with OAuth, right? So basically, what you do is you can configure OpenFGA to validate a token. So you can provision that token in any way you want, right? And validate that is for the issuer and the audience that you want. Those are the two ways. But the authentication is for the server. Okay, so you want to authenticate with the server, you can do anything in the server, right? There are a few things we might want to do. One, let me just, I think we have this here in the, I'm going to find the right tab. Of course, the last one I picked. I think it's here. So there's different scenarios. One is I want to have credentials for a specific store, right? So I have credentials that are for the production or the staging store. That's pretty common, right? Other one is for each store have different permissions. So these credentials for this store can only read or can only change the traditional model or can do everything, okay? And then the most interesting one and the most complex one is different permissions per type, right? So these credentials can only write tuples for this specific type, right? That helps if you have a large team and you want to have each team applications only write and interact with specific types in the model. There's an RFC that actually Jacob started with some ideas. There's a long conversation here and some ideas that are explored, okay, about the approach. The one we are probably going to follow is something that is pretty neat, which is something like defining the permissions on OpenFGA, okay? So we have a way you can configure a model on OpenFGA that will define how permissions work for OpenFGA, okay? So that's the approach we're probably going to take, and we'll know more once we are closer to implementation and can share more details about how that's going to work. Any questions about that? Comments? Okay, cool. So we currently have a endpoint that is called list objects that returns all the objects that have a specific relationship with the user. A similar one is I want to list all the users that have specific relationship with an object, okay? So like who can read this document. And so that endpoint is going to be called list users. and it's something we want to do. Batch checks in the server side, we mentioned that as part of the batch checks in the client. Additional ABAC capabilities. Today we have this feature we call contextual tuples that help you in some ABAC scenarios. There are other ideas that different vendors have been explored and we have considered in the past, and we are going to keep considering those. Some of them could be adding like a way to add conditions when you write a tuple. So this tuple is only valid if a condition, for example, it's not valid after this time, right? So you can grant permissions for an hour for a user, and then the tuple will expire. A way to define conditions that you can write in a language in the model, and you can have more flexibility in defining conditions for when a relation is established, or things like just let me go also here. We see if we can read them. The other approach that we are going to explore is something like in addition of storing tuples, store something that are more properties for a resource, right? This document is in development, something like that, and then write proper conditions and relations based on those, right? Those are things that we don't know what we're going to do first or later, and it's just ideas at this stage. But we want OpenFGA to be able to express most authorization rules that you can imagine, right? And for that, we need to extend it besides what Riva can do, and adding more ABAC capabilities is going to help a lot from that perspective, right? So our goal is, yes, everything you need to define in authorization, at some moment you should be able to do it in OpenFGA. At that moment, maybe OPA is not as needed, right? And that today you can use it if you want to combine both. As we adding more capabilities for ABAC on OpenFGA, there will be less need for attribute-based tools in the pipeline. And then other one is today OpenFGA doesn't have any caching. So every time you read or write, we go to the database. And that is working well for most of our customers, right? And I also have the advantage that when you are doing caching, you start having to consider consistency, right? And then right now, if you're using OpenFGA, you always have strong reads and strong consistency because there's no caching anywhere, right? And that simplifies some scenarios. Right? However, if we want this, so part of the Zanzibar paper and the way it works in our hosted version and CWGA, we do have caching, and we believe that's a feature we need to have also in OpenFGA. And we are going to explore different options to support caching in OpenFGA that we don't. And once that happens, we'll need to provide you more options when you want to do a read. So if we start supporting today, OpenFGA has strong reads because it doesn't use caching. If we add caching, you need to have a way to keep your strong reads, okay? Because that's the way the product is behaving. And in the future, have options to decide this specific read, I want it to be cached, or we have low latency whenever you are answering, optimized for low latency or something like that. So you can get faster results without worrying about consistency, okay? So those are, in Zanzibar, there's a feature that is Sukis that helps you in those scenarios, and that's something we might end up doing or not, we don't know. But we believe we need to have more options for when handling consistency in OpenFGA, and that's where we plan to do. And now I'm gonna stop talking and see if, so now I don't think I have a Q&A slide. I should, but this is it. This is what I had to share with you. So now, if anyone has any comment or question, at the moment, and we can have an open conversation about whatever you want.
Hi. So I have a question about specifically regarding the ABAC. I wrote it in the chat. But it's how do you solve the problem when you have a reports to or a management influence in OpenFGA? In my current scenario, and I'm sure Carlos, who I worked with in the past about this, will remember this keenly. There's the whole cascading managers problem where you have when you have a manager and that manager manages another manager, that manager manages another manager, and then eventually relates down to some tree of employees. To determine that the top level manager can access all the stuff that the other managers have, you have to basically do a very big tree traversal to determine that. Is that something that OpenFGA can help for through its ABAC capabilities, or is that a problem that is left to be solved?
No, actually, so this scenario is more a scenario for relationship-based access control, which is what OpenFGA does best. Okay, and so in my, let me see if I can find it. Give me a second. Let me see. I'm looking for a slide that we used. So this is my. Some of you might have seen this example, but this is what the way we demo. Like we show how relationship-based access control works. Okay? And this example is an example where you see what you have is an employee and an expense report, and what you want to define is I want the expense report to be approved by a manager of the employee. Okay. So whatever, sorry. So whoever can manage the submitter of the expense report can actually approve the expense report, okay? So, and the way this is defined, you see an employee, we have a relation called can manage, that we say, who can manage an employee? The manager of the employee, which is someone I can assign, or any person that can manage the manager. Okay, so and that's basically that, right? We are traversing the tree of managers upstream to find who is the manager, if the person that is executing the action, in this case, approving the expense report, is in that management chain. Okay, so this kind of traversing a tree is what relationship-based works better for, and yeah, we can see the use case with more details, but I will be surprised if you cannot model it this way.
There's a question from Thomas in the chat as well. We're talking about kind of temporal based relationships. So after a certain timestamp, relationships, expire. And in particular, his most recent comment was just mentioning that if these conditions, these expiry conditions, are conditions applied at the time of evaluation, then those relationships might stick around for an extended period of time, leading to wasted space. So I just kind of wanted to talk to that a little bit. I think there's kind of two things there, right, in that question. There's one, how can we enforce temporal based relationship? And with that could definitely fall under the scope of work for our ABAC work that we plan on addressing, right? Because you could have a conditional expression that says this relationship only holds true if a certain conditional expression is met. That conditional expression could be based upon a time range being met. But then there's the second feature, which is how can we actually delete or garbage collect, right, relationship tuples that are no longer meeting a certain lifetime or life cycle criteria, right? And there's another component that we could consider adding to the OpenFGA server for that as well, right? Where you could configure, like a garbage collection window or relationship tuple, cleanup job interval that will go through and delete, relationship tuples whose conditions are no longer being met. That would imply that the relationship tuples themselves also need the conditions bound to them or persisted alongside of the relationship tuples, because in order to evaluate those expressions, that has to be persisted along with the relationship tuples themselves. So something we could do, we haven't explored it a ton yet, but we definitely can see a lot of use cases for it. And so, we'll keep it in mind as we're doing a lot of this ABAC work that's coming up.
That's an interesting use case because we can try to apply generic solutions that will also solve that problem, like I don't know, conditions or things like that. But or if you hear a noise, that's my dog trying to open the door. He wants. be able to do it, but he kept trying. Sorry. And so the now what I was saying, but that is a so common scenario, right? The thing that I want to grant permission for a day or for 2 hours to access a resource that might require we might optimize for that specific problem, like and find something that just works for that. For example, I heard someone saying like, yeah, most authorization problems can be solved by just giving access to someone for 15 minutes, right? In particular, in accessing to resources and like cloud resources, I think of that, right? In modern employment infrastructure scenario, if you have that, yeah, then you will solve most of the problem. Huh? So just having a way to say this tuple expires in 2 hours, right? And we'll just we'll collect it automatically, right? Because we know that's the semantics of that tuple condition. That's something that can help a lot.
So question, when I first started looking into OpenFGA, it was one of the few things that called out the things it was not good for. Not just, hey, here's all the things I can do well, but also these are the things that I don't do well. Have we overcome any of those challenges, or are those constraints still true today? Because I will say the last time I read the documentation, it was like 6 months ago.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things there, and I don't know what you're referring to in particular, right? One part is things that are more ABAC, okay, that require like that you cannot be expressed just with relationships, right? And that's where we made some progress, and there's still more progress to do, okay? So we can define certain things today, but there's a space for us to be more expressive and to define more authorization logic that is based on attributes, right? So that's one part. And the other part that is challenging with adopting a system like OpenFGA is a problem that is called search with permissions, which is, let's say you want to list all the documents that a user can view, right? And you want to list them and also filter by document title, right? To do that query, you need to join data that is in your system, like the list of documents with a specific title, right? With data that we have, which is who can see what, okay? And that is a problem that we made some progress. For example, this list objects endpoint helps you give me a list of all the documents that a user can see, right? But there are limits to how practical that is depending on your use case. For example, if you have 1 million documents or 10 million documents that you can see, getting a list of 10 million documents is not going to help you, right, for solving those problems, right? So there are more things that can be done at the product level, but at the end of the day, complex scenarios will require a more complex solution on the application side, like having an index on your side that has some of the data that we have in FGA replicated or indexed in a way that helps you solve those problems, right? So there's only so much we can do from the product side to actually address that problem in full for every scenario, right? And for some use cases we can help, and that's the path we are taking for with list objects, list users, and other features that might happen in the future.
And I'll also add to, we have talked about having a more discovery work in our future roadmap around what we've kind of internally been calling the expanded read changes API. And essentially it would give you a stream of the flattened. So if you view these relationships as like a graph, right? Your permission model is like a graph of relationships. We can flatten that graph for you and just give you a flattened set of relationship tuples that are authoritative statements about what relationships a user has. So like if a user has access to a document through a group membership, we would flatten that relationship for you and just say all of those users that are part of that group, they all have access to that document. And we could stream that to you, and then you can use that stream client side and index it in Postgres, for example, or whatever database, Elasticsearch, whatever you're using, and use that index along with your search queries, right? Filtered search queries to serve those use cases. So it's something that we've thought about. We haven't done a lot of discovery on it. We actually have some of the foundational APIs that we need internally to actually build that functionality. The foundation behind list object, that API, that's actually one of the building blocks for being able to provide that functionality. And the list users API here, the second bullet point, that would provide kind of the second component or second building block needed for that functionality. So it's something we're thinking about, right? We definitely want to provide, from a product level, we want to provide some kind of API to help assist you with building that index that you can use client side for that search with permissions use case. But right now we're just trying to work on more of those building blocks so that we can actually build upon that.
Yeah, that problem is a problem. So if you like someone, if you want to implement relational-based access, you're going to have the problem somehow, right? So it's like there will need to be investments on your application side to work on that problem, regardless of what we do, right? But we can help to a certain extent, and that's what we're trying to do. But it's one of the important work streams product-wise, right? It's like search with permissions and try to be better and have better solutions for that scenario.
Brett posted something in the chat that I wanted to just kind of briefly address as well. Brett said, my team was talking about the hope for some kind of garbage collection. In our case, we'd like to garbage collect models basically that are no longer being used. I think that's kind of, pretty logical ask. The challenge that I see with that, right, is we want to maintain a high degree of consistency between the type definitions that have been defined in your store and the relationships that actually exist in the store. So if you have a ton of tuples that reference a document object type and you delete all models that reference the document type, right, now there are relationship tuples in the system that have become like out of sync, if you will, or no longer have high fidelity with the type definitions defined in your store, which is one of the reasons why we've kind of made our authorization models immutable, right? Like you can add new ones and then you can start introducing new relationship tuples, but you can't delete old ones, which definitely has some downsides. We've kind of talked about this. I know internally on our team, I've been a pretty large proponent of like, maybe we should explore a single schema design, right? Where like you have one model and all of the tuples in the system have to validate against a single model. And if you want to change that model and like remove relationships or remove types, then you have to, do the cleanup job, right? You have to do the migration job premature before actually doing that. So I don't know, there's still some exploration in that regard. I think if we continue with multiple models and we want to provide functionalities to garbage collect prior models, we probably also need to provide mechanisms to ensure that any reference tuples are no longer present in the system. So
I think Brett's use case was simpler though. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he was mainly talking about deleting a store. Okay, so when you delete a store today, we also don't delete the tuples, right? And to do that, that's way simpler. We can delete the data, right? If we need to delete the store, it's just that doing that efficiently in a way that scales and it doesn't block the database or creates a performance problem is something we need to do carefully, right? So it's like we need a background job that is deleting like at a reasonable pace that doesn't block the database. Right? Awesome. Okay, so we are at yeah. Go ahead.
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
You did bring up something else that is interesting to me, and that is migrations. That would be really cool to be able to perform migrations on tuples that exist.
Awesome. Yeah, that's something maybe we can discuss that in more depth in our next call, because I think there's a lot of things to discuss there, and maybe a good topic to get more in depth. We can actually present our view on the problem, right? And as part of the agenda, and also see what everyone thinks, and because I think it will be awesome if we can help there, but it's not very clear for us how we can help in a way that is good enough for everyone, right? So that will be awesome. Yeah. thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so thank you,
I
everyone.
think Evan
Sorry.
has posed a question online about discussion regarding additional API authorization options.
Yeah, so let me, let me share, we have, I think here, this one has a link to the RFC that Jacob created, that there's a more conversations there, but maybe you can start here in this one. Yeah. And I also got the point there. So yeah, we reply there, Evan. Yeah, about a public model registry, that will be interesting. And I think that, so today we have a repo in the community, in FGA, that has sample stores, which are our samples, right? But it will be awesome at some moment if other people from the community decided, okay, yeah, I build my model for Pluralsight or for GoDaddy or for UKG or for New Relic, right? And we are comfortable sharing that because it's not that's, maybe it is impossible to share it because there's a PII there, or sorry, IP there that you don't want to share, right? Maybe it's not, or maybe a simplified version of how you do this for a content management system or for a e-learning platform, right? It will be awesome, right? But yeah, that's a good idea also, Thomas. Thank you for suggesting that.
Well, and one thing that could go along with that too is something we haven't explored or discovered at all. I'm just thinking out loud here, but when we introduce more authorization, options into OpenFGA, right? Andres talked about maybe we add the ability to limit who can write relationships for certain types, and maybe we even want to restrict who can introduce or modify the relationship definition for certain types within a model. Part of that work could also be introducing kind of an import style model framework, right? Where a model is composed of different imports, and those imports are type definitions themselves that come from different teams within your orgs, right? And in that way, you compose your top level product model from multiple, modules that different teams own, right? And that different teams can write based on their access controls that they have in the OpenFGA store. So something we haven't discovered at all. I'm just thinking out loud here, but that might be a way that we could bring modularity, right, to our model definitions in a way that also works well with our finer grained authorization within OpenFGA.
Yep. So each time I say, thank you, everyone, someone has a new question. So I will stop now and see if someone else has a new question.
We should also plug that you can come and say hi in Discord and ask questions like this. If you think of something 5 minutes from when we end, or an hour from when we end, or tomorrow or next week, we're always online and ready to chat about this stuff.
Carlos posed an interesting question about ChatGPT. Do we want to talk about that?
So I
that was totally in jest. I don't think.
No. But actually, we do have something, right? So. And so I should share there. So that we did some exploration. So a team in Zero did some explorations on that, on how you could kind of ask in natural language, how to define a model, and then you can create a model, right? And so it kind of works. We are not sure if we're going to productize it because we're not sure how. You still need to know what we want, right? And you still need to understand the model. So it can help you start, or it can help you, if you know what you're doing, it can help you get to a model that works. Because of course it's going to be mistakes, right? So you kind of, you're not going to take what ChatGPT gives you and run your authorization logic based on that, right? But as an experiment, it was fun. The complexity now is that if we have the playground is free for everyone. You can use it with authentication. And today, calling ChatGPT APIs is kind of expensive. So if someone abuses it, which will be pretty easy, we can have problems. So we might want to integrate that in the cloud product, which users can log in, right? So we need to figure out the right path of doing it. And we can also share prompt that we used, right? And you can use it in your own ChatGPT things. And but yeah, we need to find out a way to do that because it's fun and it can be useful.
I mean, you say it's fun, and Carlos said it as a jest, but one of the hardest things to do is for a business user to define a complex rule that is easy to describe in English language, but then disseminate down into like technical relationships. So while you're saying it jokingly, like this is the same problem that you have with BPM, and maybe finally AI could help solve that problem for non-technical users. I won't hold my breath for it because there's lots of things that have to happen for it, but it's not a crazy question.
Wait, who has issues understanding BPM? I'm good.
Business people.
Yeah.
The B part of BPM.
Okay, you have a minute.
Just wait until you're at the 50. Just wait until you're like at the 58th second.
I know that's going to happen. So, so thank you very much. So this was really good for us, right? So we are very happy for you being here. So we thank you very much for that. And we were expecting that maybe no one shows up, right? And there was a lot of people for what we were expecting. So thank you, thanks. And so we have another one next month. I will remind you for using our normal channels. I probably if you add your name or your contact there in the agenda document, I'll reach out and let you know when there's another one in case you don't see it happening. And yeah, let's keep in touch. We know how we can contact each other, so we can keep the conversations going.
Yeah, tell your friends, tell your coworkers.
Yeah. Okay, and I'm gonna find a way to get swag, but for everyone, but that's kind of difficult in Octa right now. So I'll figure it out at some point. Okay.
Thank you guys for hosting this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.